Hi there, this is Mike Quinn, and I played Nien Nunb in Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. And you're listening to Chris Gordon on Hellblazer Biz. Yay!
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, listeners, wherever you are in the world right now or in the universe. This is Hellblazer Biz with your host, as always, me, Chris Gordon. Perhaps today's greeting should be more in the vein of a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night. Do I wish you? As today's guest, I have the privilege of talking to, who spent his entire career manipulating Muppets and puppets and working in blockbuster films, bringing magic to the screen for the young and old alike. He's also known worldwide for playing a jolly Celestian named Nien Nunb in Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. I'm proud to bring to you today Mr. Mike Quinn. Good morning for you, Mike, and good evening for me it is.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, it's perfectly fine. I really appreciate that you came on, and you know the support that you've given. It's brilliant. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. Yes, it's going to be fun.
Hope so. I've saved my impressions for this interview.
Oh.
I know you've already heard one because I think I remember sending you a link. It wasn't a very good one where I sang the Rainbow Connection as Kermit.
yes, you did, and I listened to it. Yes, very good, very good. The thing is to have fun with that stuff.
Oh,
you know, and there's you can't go wrong as long as you're enjoying yourself.
Exactly.
So.
It's good fun. So, kind of going back into that, how did you get into it all? I mean, I know back when you were 13, you had the chance to actually meet Jim Henson himself as well, because you were a young puppeteer from age.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. I was sort of, as a kid, I was sort of straddling between, I loved puppet shows and live puppet things and puppet shows on TV and all that kind of thing, but it was sort of a bit pre-Muppets in the UK, at that time. I think the Americans were a little more familiar with them from Ed Sullivan's show and other things like that. But I was also into cartoons and Disney and drawing and animation and that kind of thing. So I thought, well, maybe I want to be an animator or a cartoonist or something like that. So I spent a lot of time drawing, and then when Muppet Show came along, I sort of became really curious. What is this thing? These are 3D real life cartoons. How are these things actually working? How they made, how they moving. So I was trying to figure it all out, and then I'd start building my own puppets and try and gather as many pictures as I could of how these guys were working these things. Yeah. And, of course, as you're probably aware, the Muppet Show kind of hit bigger in the UK earlier on than it did in the States. By the end of Season 1 in 1976, 77, it was huge. They were in the charts and everything, music charts, all kinds of stuff. So I and I was at that right age where I was just kind of getting obsessed with it all and figuring out what I was going to do with my future life. The last several years of schooling, you start to look at all that. So that just became my thing. And so I was lucky enough to meet the main 5 Muppet guys in 1977. They were doing a guest spot on Kenny Everett radio show on Saturday on Capital Radio. And he announced it the week before, so I went along with my school friend, and we got on the bus and met them and got their autographs, and that was the very first time I actually met them all. And then a few years later, when I understood that they actually made the Muppet Show about half an hour from where I lived. I used to live in Enfield in north of London there. Yeah. And so I'd get on a bus and ride my way past the security there, and I was a regular visitor, so they kind of got to know me. And of course, that's all I needed was encouragement, So I'd bring puppets along, and Jim Henson would put them on, and that all give me a lot of encouragement. Well, Muppet Show came to an end in the summer of 1980, as did my schooling. And I knew that there was nothing else anyone could teach me, and I was going to do puppets, and that was it. So off I went. I actually, they they moved over from ATV, which is now the BBC studios.
Mm-hmm.
They moved across the street to the film studios there in Elstree in Boreham Wood. So, and they began filming The Great Muppet Caper. So basically, I tracked them down on location and gave Jim Henson an envelope asking for a job. You know, I had pictures of my puppets, a little letter, and a newspaper interview article in there, and it happened to be his 44th birthday that day.
Oh, lovely.
And I think he thought I was giving him a birthday card, but so he thanked me for it, and off he went. And then within about a week or two, I got a call from the exec producer saying, we'd like to give you a tryout for a week on the movie as a a background puppeteer kind of thing.
Yeah.
And what I heard years later, of course, is that I think Jim just felt so bad for me. It's like, well, this guy's here anyway all the time. Maybe we should just give him a job, So, and they did, and I worked for that 1 week. It was all location work that first week on The Great Muppet Caper, and they just kept extending me, and suddenly I became a regular. Yeah. And then at the same time, they were developing The Dark Crystal.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
So it was a 2-picture deal, basically, with Lou Grade. Mm-hmm. So when I wasn't filming on The Great Muppet Caper, the puppet builder Bobby Payne, who was one of Jim Henson's original puppet guys, actually, in the 50s. I think they even went to school together. Oh, he remembered from when I brought puppets into the Muppet Workshop on the Muppet Show, and he needed an extra pair of hands to assemble the podlings and slaves for the Dark Crystal. Yeah. I think there are 100 of them in total, about 50 of each. Right. So I'd be at the Hampstead Workshop next to all the guys building skeksis and mystics and costumes and mechanisms and all sorts. Mm-hmm. And I'd be assembling podlings and slaves when I wasn't filming at the studio. And then eventually I got a cast in the role of performing one of the Skeksis characters. Mm-hmm. So it just sort of went on from there. I never really actually auditioned as such. It was an odd thing. I think Jim just trusted that, these are the kind of people that are obsessive enough to actually figure out how to do this kind of thing and learn on the job as well. I mean, I taught myself a little bit of basics, but you still the only real way to learn everything is just learn on the job. So he allowed me to do that, and he would have me assist him with Kermit, and Frank would have me assist with Fozzie and Piggy, and I'd be doubling up for principal characters in the wide shots and that kind of thing. So right from the outset, so I kind of learned my basic trade in those first few years, and all that I've learned at that time has stood me in good stead until this very day. It was an amazing first 2 or 3 years, basically.
Well, yeah, I mean, who else can, in fairness, who else can go out and say that as soon as they left school, their training and their experiences were with the legendary Jim Henson?
Yeah,
that's a hell of an accolade to have.
I always say it was downhill from there, but I've been a has-been for the last 35 years. But.
Oh, no, that's great. So I mean, inspiration-wise, I take it would Jim be an inspiration for you? Who else? Is there anyone else who sort of inspires you?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, anyone that all the people he had around him also inspired me. I mean, because he was one of those guys that knew how to build a good team. So, from the artists to puppet builders, performers, music people, and then the people that you work with that come in as guests and that kind of thing. Yeah. Just absolutely amazing, the careers that these people have had. And Jim always had a very, very deep appreciation of other people's work and art. And he sort of kept that ethos around him whenever he did projects. I guess I sort of was interested in learning about filmmaking itself and how that works and how directing works and editing and lighting and that whole kind of thing. I'm inspired by a lot of classic great filmmakers and techniques and music and it just expands out basically.
That's quite wide ranging. No, that's brilliant. What can you remember? What your most memorable experience was working within the Muppet world? I say is because you're still within the Muppet world.
Yeah, there are so many memorable ones, and that's the thing. It's almost like because every time you work on a project, it's like a new job. Every job is different. And there are so many that you know. I mean, I'm going to have to write a book about just the career stuff alone because there's so much stuff. But every once in a while, you kind of catch yourself in a surreal moment. Here I am in the middle of these classic characters, and I'm a part of it. And you're looking at the screen, at TV monitor, as you're performing. So you're sort of once removed in an abstract kind of way. It's like you're the audience watching the show. But then your brain switches back and thinks, oh, wait a minute, that's me on the screen working that character. You know, here I am working a character with Kermit and Fozzie and Piggy. And it's a real strange thing. I mean, just some incredible. I mean, I've always enjoyed working with music, with the Muppets in particular. That always seems to be the most fun for me, a highlight. But some amazing things, like, I mean, just off the top of my head, doing the Muppets in 2011, the Jason Segel film. You know, they closed down Hollywood Boulevard for the entire night. And we saw the sun set on one end of the boulevard, and the moon come up on the other, and the moon go down again. And you know, they had hundreds of extras and dancers in the street, helicopters flying around, getting aerial shots, and 2 units going at the same time, just bashing out all the shots. I mean, such an amazing thing. It's just like, wow, this really is Hollywood. Here we are doing a musical, you know, outside the Chinese theater here, and it doesn't get more Hollywood than that. So there are moments like that just I think it's just having those surreal moments. You know, how did this happen? How did I get here? And being able to appreciate all that and everyone around you, because when you work on a project, when you work hard, it's kind of like everyone is supporting each other. You do become a family, and everyone's in the trenches together, trying to enable each other, make each other look good, and that kind of thing. And then the project comes to an end, and it's hard again, because then you have to say goodbye to your family, and you go back to your real life. You know, you can't be in that fantasy world anymore, much as we all love to stay in it. So it's an odd thing, but it's really hard to single out any particular memory, really, just because there are just so many.
I could imagine.
Just helping. I mean, one lovely thing that always comes to mind is we were shooting. It was after I think it was a little after the Dark Crystal had finished. We were shooting some Muppet home video wraparounds. For it's basically a clip show, Muppet Show edits, you know. So they built a few little sets, and it would mostly be just Frank Oz and Jim Henson, sometimes Richard Hunt, that kind of thing. But I was their assistant for everything, you know. So there'd be a little bit of, like, for example, they have some little sketches that Jerry Jewell, the writer, would write about Kermit and Fozzie going through props in the attic. Oh, remember when we used this in the show? And then they'd go into the clip, you know, one of those. But I remember there was a bit with Kermit and Fozzie. And, you know, a lot of what Jim had to do was obviously run the business and deals and meetings and all that kind of side of things. But I think whenever he was at his happiest was when he could just forget about that, go onto a set, put a puppet on, and just play. He just loved to play. And he and Frank Oz obviously had a great relationship with each other, and a lot of love for each other, and they understood each other's timings. And I forget what they were talking about, but I think they just got into some sort of ad-libbing outtake stuff with Kermit and Fozzie, and it got to the point where tears were just rolling down their cheeks. You know, they were just cracking each other up. Just, you know, 2 grown men with a puppet on their arm, and they were just laughing, and it was just such a joy to see. You know, that stuff nobody really knows about. On the same shoot, actually, there was I think one of the episodes was called Ralph's Rhapsodies, Ralph the dog. And it was Ralph with all his favorite musical clips, I guess. So you know, we had one of the classic Ralphs there, and Jim was working him, and I was doing the other hand or paw, if you like, and he was holding one of those joke bombs with the fuse in the top. And I don't know what the heck I thought I was doing, but somehow I twisted the hand wrong, and the fuse touched Ralph's face, and he caught fire.
Oh, no.
You saw the smoke coming up on camera.
Oh, gosh.
And, down went the puppet, and off it went to the workshop to get patched up. I just felt so bad. It's like, I'm going to set fire to this dog while it's on Jim's hand while we're in the middle of taping. Not a good thing, not a good thing. So, yeah, things like that are kind of horrifying.
I can
but
imagine.
I still worked afterwards. I think he understood. I mean, that's the thing. Jim was always